The storm arrived without warning, the kind that swallowed sound and certainty in a single breath. Snow slammed against the windows of the red hollow telegraph station, driven sideways by a wind that howled like a wounded animal. Cassandra Whitmore sat stiffly at her desk, fingers hovering over the telegraph key, listening to the wire crackle and die. Then nothing. She tried again. Tap, tap, silence. Cassandra exhaled slowly, pressing her gloved hands together to warm them. The station had been quiet for days, but this silence felt different, heavier. Final, she stood and crossed the small room, peering out through frost-laced glass at the endless white. The road was gone. The horizon to Red Hollow might as well have been erased from the map. She had lived alone at the station for nearly a year, relaying messages between towns, warning of bandits or broken bridges, sometimes carrying nothing more urgent than news of a birth or a wedding. She liked the solitude, trusted it. But storms like this one tested even the strongest resolve. A sudden sound cut through the wind, muffled, distant, but unmistakable. A shout. Cassandra froze. Another shout followed, closer this time, carried on the wind. She grabbed her wool coat from the hook and pulled it on, heart pounding. Against every sensible instinct, she opened the door. The cold hit her like a slap. Snow stung her cheeks as she stepped onto the porch, squinting into the white chaos. At first she saw nothing. Then a dark shape moved near the half-buried stagecoach, just beyond the station fence. "Hello," she called, her voice nearly stolen by the wind. The shape staggered, then straightened. A man emerged from the snow, tall and broad-shouldered, his coat caked in ice. One arm was pressed tight against his side, his face raw from the cold. "Stagecoach guard," he rasped. "Name's David Hale. Coach broke an axle. Driver took off on horseback hours ago. I've been walking since." Cassandra didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, gripping his arm and guiding him toward the station. "You'll freeze out here. Come inside now." David barely had strength to argue. Once inside, the door slammed shut behind them, sealing out the storm. He leaned heavily against the wall, breathing hard. Cassandra set him down on a chair near the iron stove, already stoked low for the night. She added more coal, watching as warmth slowly returned to the room. "You're injured," she said, kneeling to inspect him. "Knife," he admitted. "Bandits tried the coach before the storm rolled in. I scared them off, but not before one got lucky." She frowned, but said nothing, fetching clean cloth and a bottle of whiskey from a cupboard. Her hands were steady as she worked, though her pulse raced. She wasn't used to company, especially not wounded. Dangerous-looking men who appeared out of blizzards like ghosts. David watched her quietly. "Didn't think anyone lived out here." "I do," she replied simply. "And tonight, so do you." Outside, the storm roared louder, as if angered by their defiance. Cassandra tied off the bandage and met David's gaze. The realization settled between them, unspoken but undeniable. They were snowbound, and whatever this storm intended, it wasn't letting either of them go anytime soon. The storm worsened as night fell, if such a thing was even possible. The wind battered the station walls relentlessly, rattling the shutters and forcing snow through the smallest cracks. Cassandra lit the oil lamps, their warm glow barely pushing back the shadows that crept along the wooden walls. David sat near the stove, coat shed, bandaged side stiff beneath his shirt. He hadn't complained once, though she could tell from the tight set of his jaw that the pain was biting deep. "You should lie down," Cassandra said, gesturing toward the narrow cot along the wall. He shook his head. "You need it more than I do. I'll manage here." "That wasn't a suggestion," she replied, sharper than she meant. Then she softened. "You've lost blood. Pride won't keep you warm." A faint smile tugged at his mouth. "Guess I walked into the wrong kind of trouble." He stood slowly, clearly dizzy, and allowed her to guide him to the cot. Once he lay back, Cassandra pulled a blanket over him, her movements brisk but careful. The closeness unsettled her more than she cared to admit. She straightened quickly and returned to the desk, pretending to tidy papers that didn't need sorting. For a while, only the storm spoke. David broke the silence. "You always this quiet." "Only when I'm thinking," she said. "And what are you thinking now?" "That the telegraph line is dead. The road is gone. And if the storm lasts more than 2 days, supplies might get thin." He glanced around the room. "You've done this before." "Yes," she said, "but never with company." He chuckled, then winced. "Sorry." Despite herself, Cassandra smiled. She poured 2 cups of coffee from the pot warming on the stove and brought one to him. "Careful," she said. "It's strong. After today, I could use it." He took a sip, eyes closing briefly in relief. "So what brings a woman like you out here, alone, talking to wires?" She hesitated. Few people ever asked her that. Fewer still waited patiently for the answer. "My father built this station," she said finally. "He believed information kept people alive. Weather warnings. Outlaw sightings. He died last winter. I stayed." David studied her face, seeing something deeper than composure. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to." The wind howled again, louder than before, and the lamp flickered. Cassandra moved instinctively to steady it. When she turned back, David was watching her, with a look she couldn't quite place. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he said. "Just not many people choose this kind of loneliness." "Loneliness," she echoed. "Or freedom." That seemed to strike something in him. He shifted, staring at the ceiling. "I've spent my life on roads, guarding things that don't belong to me. People passing through, never staying. Funny how a storm can stop all that." Cassandra sat across from him now, the desk forgotten. Storms have a way of revealing things. Another hour passed. The fire crackled. Snow buried the windows entirely, turning them into walls of white. Cassandra checked David's bandage, changed it once more, her fingers brushing his skin longer than necessary. "You're lucky," she said. "Missed anything vital?" "Luck hasn't been my usual companion." "Maybe it's changing," she replied before she could stop herself. Their eyes met. Something unspoken lingered between them, fragile as the flame in the lamp. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed outsideward, splintering under pressure. Cassandra stiffened. That didn't sound like wind. David pushed himself upright, pain forgotten. Could be the station's supports shifting under the snow. "Or something else," she said quietly. He reached for his rifle, leaning it near the door. "Whatever it is, you won't face it alone." Outside, the storm screamed on, indifferent to fear or promise. Inside the small telegraph station, 2 strangers listened. Realizing the night was far from over, neither were the choices ahead. Morning came without light. The world beyond the station remained buried in white. The sky a dull, endless gray that blended seamlessly with the snowdrifts piled high against the walls. Cassandra had slept little, waking often to the groan of the building and the whistle of wind through the eaves. She rose quietly and stirred the fire, coaxing life back into the coals. When she turned, she found David already awake, sitting up on the cot, jaw tight as he adjusted the blanket. "You should have rested longer," she said. "Hard to sleep when the station sounds like it's trying to tear itself apart." She handed him a cup of coffee. "Welcome to Red Hollow Winters." He accepted it with a nod. "How long do storms like this last?" "Sometimes a day, sometimes a week." David took a slow sip, eyes flicking to the snow-packed windows. "Then we'd better hope this one gets bored." Cassandra checked the telegraph line again, tapping the key despite knowing it was useless. Still no response. The isolation pressed heavier now in daylight. What passed for it? She wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders. "You ever regret staying?" David asked suddenly. The question caught her off guard. She considered lying, but something about the storm, about the honesty forced by survival, made that feel pointless. "Sometimes," she admitted. "When the nights get too quiet. When I imagine what life might have been like elsewhere." She paused. "But regret isn't the same as wishing I'd chosen differently." He studied her for a moment. "You're stronger than you let on." "Most people are," she said. A loud thud interrupted them, shaking the walls. Snow slid from the roof in a heavy cascade. Cassandra's breath caught. "That's the third time," she said. "If it keeps building, the roof won't hold." David pushed himself to his feet, moving carefully. "I'll clear what I can." "You're injured." "I've been worse." She hesitated, then nodded. Together they bundled up scarves, tight around their faces. The door fought them as they pushed it open, snow spilling inside like a living thing. Outside, the cold was brutal. David climbed onto the porch roof as Cassandra held the ladder steady, her gloves numbing quickly. He shoveled snow away in heavy sweeps, each movement deliberate, controlled. "Bandits," she called up to him. "You mentioned them before. Were they after something specific?" He paused. "Payroll shipment. Small mining town to the east. Word must have gotten out." "And you?" "I stayed with the coach, even after the driver ran." He looked down at her, then eyes steady. Someone had to. That answer stayed with her as they worked in silence. When they returned inside, breathless and half-frozen, Cassandra laughed softly, despite herself. "What?" David asked. "I just realized," she said, pulling off her gloves. "I haven't laughed in weeks." "Well," he said, wincing as he sat. Glad nearly collapsing on a roof could help with that. She tended his wound again, noticing the swelling but pleased to see no fresh bleeding. Her fingers lingered, aware of his warmth, the steady strength beneath her touch. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for helping, for staying." He met her gaze. "Seems we're both doing a lot of staying these days." The storm raged on, but inside the station something shifted. They shared stories over canned beans and bread, trading memories like currency, his life on the road, her childhood, learning Morse code by firelight. Hours passed without notice. As evening fell again, the wind eased slightly, though the cold deepened. Cassandra added coal to the stove, watching the flames dance. "If the storm breaks tomorrow," David said, "I'll head east. Find help, come back for you if needed. And if it doesn't," he smiled faintly. "Then we adapt." The station creaked, settling into the night. Cassandra realized she no longer felt alone in it. Truly. The storm had stripped away routine, fear, distance. What remained was raw and uncertain, but real. Outside, the wind softened for the first time since David arrived. Cassandra didn't know what the morning would bring. Only that, whatever it was, they would face it together. The storm loosened its grip during the night, not with mercy, but with exhaustion. By dawn, the wind had fallen into a low moan, and the snow no longer hurled itself against the walls. An uneasy quiet settled over Red, hollow-thick, watchful, and unfamiliar. Cassandra stood at the window, scraping frost away with her sleeve. For the first time in days, the outline of the road reappeared, half buried, but visible. "It's breaking," she said softly. David stirred on the cot. "That's good news." She turned to face him, surprised to find her relief tangled with something else. Hesitation. The thought of the station returning to silence felt heavier than the storm itself. David rose carefully, testing his balance. "If the road clears by midday, I can make it to the ridge. There's a supply post past it." Cassandra nodded, though her chest tightened. "I'll help you pack." They worked quietly, the clink of metal and rustle of cloth filling the room where conversation had lived so easily before. Cassandra wrapped food in cloth, added extra bandages, then paused, holding a small brass object in her palm. "My father's compass," she said, pressing it into David's hand. "The snow can still play tricks out there." He hesitated. "I can't take this." "You can," she insisted. "Just bring it back." Their fingers brushed as he closed his hand around it. "I will." The quiet shattered suddenly. A sharp crack echoed from outside, too precise to be shifting snow. David froze. "That's a gunshot." Another followed, closer. Cassandra's blood ran cold. "Bandits." "Could be," he said, already reaching for his rifle. They might have followed the coach tracks. They moved quickly. Cassandra doused the lamps, while David positioned himself near the door. The station felt smaller now, fragile beneath the threat. Footsteps crunched in the snow. A shadow passed the window. "Easy," David called out. "No need for this." A voice answered, rough and familiar. "Hale, thought you'd frozen to death." David's jaw tightened. "Move on." The door rattled as someone tested it. Cassandra swallowed hard, but didn't retreat. Instead, she stepped closer to David, hand gripping the telegraph key, like a talisman. A tense moment stretched then. Another gust swept loose snow across the porch, and hurried footsteps retreated. David waited long after the sound faded before lowering his rifle. "They won't try again," he said. "Too exposed." Cassandra exhaled shakily. "I don't like how close that was." "Neither do I." Silence returned, but it was changed, now earned, fragile, precious. By midday, the sky cleared into a pale winter blue. David shouldered his pack at the door. "I'll come back," he said, "with help, or at least supplies." Cassandra nodded. "I'll keep the fire going, and the line ready." He paused, then surprised them both by pulling her into a brief, careful embrace. His coat smelled of smoke and cold. "Thank you," he said. "For more than shelter." She looked up at him. "Just come back." The door opened. Cold air rushed in and then he was gone, a lone figure cutting across the snow. Cassandra watched until he disappeared beyond the bend. She returned to the desk, sat, and tapped the telegraph key once more. This time, faint but real, the wire answered back. The reply on the wire was weak, but unmistakable. Cassandra froze, fingers hovering as the clicking echoed through the station like a heartbeat, returning after a long stillness. She leaned in, breath shallow, translating the hesitant taps as they arrived. Red Hollow. This is Pine Ridge. Storm easing, roads clearing slowly. Are you safe? Her chest tightened. Safe. The word felt different, now earned, fragile, fuller than it had been days ago. She answered quickly, hands steady, despite the tremor in her heart. Station standing. One injured traveler departed east, awaiting further instructions. When the line fell silent again, Cassandra sat back and let herself breathe. The storm had passed, but its mark remained, not on the walls or roof, but somewhere deeper. She rose and moved to the door, opening it to a world transformed. The snow lay calm and bright beneath the sun, the air sharp and clean. Tracks cut across the road, David's tracks already softening at the edges. She stared after them longer than necessary, clutching her shawl tight. Hours passed. Cassandra kept the fire-fed scent updates down the line, and shoveled a path from the porch to the road. Evening crept in quietly, without the violence of the storm, and with it came doubt. What if he didn't make it back? What if the road pulled him away for good? She was pouring herself a cup of coffee when she heard the crunch of footsteps, deliberate and familiar. Cassandra rushed to the door, heart racing. David stood there, snow-dusted but upright, a grin breaking across his weathered face. Behind him, a supply wagon waited at the edge of the road, its driver raising a hand in greeting. "You came back," she said, the words escaping before she could stop them. "Told you I would," he replied, "and I brought help." Relief hit her so hard, she had to laugh. She stepped aside to let him in, warmth and lamplight spilling out to meet him. They talked late into the night about repairs, supply routes, how close Red Hollow had come to disappearing beneath the snow. The driver left before dawn, promising regular checks until spring fully claimed the pass. When the station finally settled into quiet again, David didn't reach for his pack. "You staying?" Cassandra asked, trying to sound casual. "For a bit," he said. "Guard work can wait. Thought I might help around here, if that's all right." She met his eyes and smiled slow and certain. "I could use the company." Outside, the telegraph wires hummed softly in the cold air, carrying messages onward, proof that connection could survive even the harshest storms. And inside the Snowbound station, warmth returned not just from the fire, but from two people who had found something worth staying for. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories